Hey friends, and welcome in to a walk through the Word, Daily Bread with Crystal Fry. I am your host, Crystal Fry, and this week's guest episode has everything: laughter, tears, and the unmistakable hand of God. Joining me on the podcast this week is Scott McDermott, a man who has had not one or two, but three near-death experiences in his life, all of which could have taken him out. But God. When Scott says, "My life is a miracle," he is absolutely telling the truth, and his story is one that is a true testament to the miracle power of God. After going from fat to fit, Scott built a 15,000 square foot gym in 2002 and wrote a book called "If Your Body Were a Car, You Wouldn't Treat It This Way." He entered his first triathlon in 2005 and fell in love with the sport. In November of 2015, at the Ultraman World Championships, Scott crashed his bike going 43 miles per hour, breaking multiple bones, including his skull. After a remarkable recovery, Scott went back to the World Championships in 2018 and placed 25th overall. Scott's life is truly an inspiration, and it's my honor to share it with you. I hope you enjoy this episode, and as always, make sure you check out the show notes to connect with Scott on his website and social media, and to watch his incredibly inspiring, award-winning documentary, Living the Warrior's Code. All right, friends, here we go. God's word is powerful. The missing link is our identity in Christ. When we know who we are and who He created us to be, that is when we can truly walk in freedom. You are never alone. There is hope, and that hope is Jesus Christ. Scott, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I am so excited for our listeners to get to hear just an incredible story. And I'm not going to give any of it away, but before we jump into that, for any of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, would you give us a little bit of an introduction and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Well, it's really great to be here, Crystal. I'm excited to talk with you. And I guess the quickest I can make it is I had a 13-year career in architecture where I sat at a desk and got fat and sick and was eating junk and didn't know what I was doing and not taking care of myself. And I had a big health crisis where I was just really overweight and unhealthy. And I finally talked to a doctor who said, you need to take care of yourself. And I met a trainer, went to a gym, started getting fit and healthy, started becoming a student in nutrition, studied every single thing I could about fitness and nutrition, and completely transformed my body. I dropped 40 pounds of fat, put on 18 pounds of muscle, had a six-pack, felt great, had tons of energy. All that stuff was great. And then I realized I didn't want to be in architecture anymore. I wanted to be a personal trainer because everybody started asking what I was doing. So I got certified as a trainer, and then I started working at a gym part-time. Then I quit my career in architecture 2 weeks before being a partner to work in a gym. And then I eventually built my own gym. I did that for a while. And after a couple of years, there was a local triathlon in town, a half Ironman distance triathlon. And I kind of thought, I wonder if I could finish one of those. I mean, I can put off drowning and I can ride the snot out of an indoor cycling spin class bike. And I used to run in high school before I broke my back, but it's healed. I want to try that. So I hired a coach, did a triathlon, progressed to Ironman, progressed to the World Championships, progressed to Ultraman, which is a 3-day triathlon that I got into, and I made it to the World Championships. And my second attempt at the World Championships, I crashed my bike at 42 miles an hour, 70 kilometers an hour. I ragdolled down the highway and I broke all kinds of bones, including my skull. And it was kind of a problem. So then it's about recovering back from that. So that's kind of as quick as I can make all that.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Well, I crashed and I broke everything, and well, that's kind of a problem. I mean, that just So I'm sure our listeners can already get a feel for the fact that this is going to be a fun conversation, but there is a lot wrapped up into that journey, that recovery as well. So I know we're going to talk about that more, and my favorite question to ask guests will probably open the door right up for that. Scott, how has your faith impacted your life?
Oh man, it's huge. I like to say that my faith is kind of like I'm a kite in a windstorm, and that's my anchor to the ground, and it's tied to something that doesn't yield. And that's been forever. I was not in a religious family in a sense. We didn't ever go to church or anything as a kid. And we had all our struggles as that is. Everybody's got their story from how that was. But I remember probably one of the most profound interactions I had with God was I had acute appendicitis, but I didn't know that. We thought I had a tummy ache. And my dad came home from work and he'd had a few sarsaparillas, and he just said, well, we'll just give you some laxative and that'll fix you up. You've been in bed all day. And he was going to give me some laxatives, right? Which, if you know anything medically about appendicitis, that's a death sentence. And I think it was, how old was I? I wasn't 12. I was maybe 13. And something took over me, and I screamed no at him so loudly, he backed up a few steps.
Wow.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know why I would have said that. I had no reason to. If your dad says this is the medication you need, when you go, okay, dad, I screamed no. So he backed up a couple steps and said, well, fine, and walked away. And then I went to the hospital later that day, and the doctor was diagnosed. He says, oh yeah, you've got your appendix is about to burst. And I said, my dad said I should take a laxative. Was that a bad idea? And the doctor's eyes went ping pong ball size, and he looked at me, he goes, you didn't take any, did you? And I said, no, why? He goes, oh, okay, thank God, it would have killed you. Your appendix would have ruptured, you would have gone septic. It's a whole new game. So they rushed me into surgery, pulled out my appendix, and I was fine. But that was that first time I was like, whoa, who said that? Where did that come from? And then just throughout my whole life, there's just been moment after moment after moment after moment where I knew that presence was there. So yeah.
That's
Now I go to church every
beautiful.
Sunday. It's great, but
Well, but yeah, like you said, a lot of people don't have the experience of being in a religious family. They don't, they're not exposed to they're not exposed to the same things that people who do grow up in a, church going family. And all of my listeners know that there's that's not what I talk about. Like,
yeah.
I am a huge proponent of the relationship that we build with God and through his word. And that's what I do. Like, that's my calling, is to help teach the word, not from a denominational standpoint. But when you tell that story, that to me, like, my brain just kind of says that was your very first encounter, like that was, and what an impactful one. And it's so beautiful to look at how everything works, because had you taken, the laxative, had something tragic, terrible happen, there's so much more of your life story that never would have happened, that you never would have had the opportunity to tell, to experience. And even, just like, there are multiple journeys here. I could write your book for you. Just, like, I mean, my brain is like, we've got a major motion picture going on in my mind right now, just with the little that you've told me so far. But you go from, here's this one encounter. And then as you talk about your weight loss journey,
Yeah.
going, and I know that a lot of our listeners can relate to that. I myself can relate to that, because that's always been one of those just kind of, I'll do really good for a while, and then I'll be like, okay, well, cookies look good today, so we're just going to have cookies today. Like, that's, we can have
Yeah.
one cookie, but one cookie usually turns into more than that over the course of time.
Right.
At least that's my experience. And I like cookies. So that's,
Yeah.
but you talk about sitting still for 12 years, being in this place where you just were not taking care of yourself. And then there was a switch that flipped for you, and you decided that, no, I don't want to be in this place anymore. And so you have this incredible journey of shedding the old self, like a literal, shedding of the old self, to get into fitness and what that looks like. And then you come into triathlons. So how did you feel yourself, like just being led in through that? Was it just a natural progression for you? Or was it something, again, like appendicitis, where you really just had a switch flip for you?
A lot of times it kind of feels like a switch thing, or like it's like it's presented to me, and there's a visceral response. There's like, it's almost a cellular response. It's like, okay, yes, we're doing that. It's and it's been so many times in my life where that has come up. I could think of all the pivotal key components in my life, where even asking my wife to marry me, 30 years ago, I guess it'd be 32 years ago that I asked, but anyway, we've been married 30 years. But I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just like, I'm going to ask Hillary to marry me tomorrow. Okay. And I went back to sleep. Like there wasn't a big long debate about it. It was just like, that's happening. It's like, okay. It was almost like, I feel like somebody just took me on the shoulder and said, hey, wake up. You're going to ask Hillary to marry me. Okay. Got it.
It's
and
time.
yeah, well, and it's funny. There's times when I listen to that moment, and there's times when I try to ignore that moment, and that never works out well. But yeah, that was just one of those moments where it was just like, I'm gonna try a triathlon. Like it just becomes, it's like a switch. It's an on-off switch. It's like, okay, that's on now. I'm gonna try that, and off I go. And there's times when I've tried to force the switch on or off. That doesn't work. Usually not well, but yeah, it's been profound kind of each time. I'm always in awe of how perfect each step is, because then it led to the next step, which couldn't have happened without that step. I'm always fascinated by that, and how many things come into play. And one of the things you said a few moments ago about how my life almost stopped at the appendicitis thing, and it made me immediately think of another time. So, childhood had its challenges, and there were many of them. But at one point I was going to commit suicide. I had a gun in my mouth, and I had my finger on the trigger, and I can still remember the taste of the oil on the barrel and the smell of the gunpowder and my dad's hunting rifle. And I was alone in his bedroom, and I had the notes written, and I was done. I had lost all faith of everything. And my best friend walked into my dad's room. And I think too, well, how did that happen? Because we had walked home from high school together, junior high school. And then I said, see you later. And he left, and it was Christmas vacation. And it was my intention to never come back. That was it. I was done. And something in him, he started walking home. Minutes went by, and something in him stopped him, and he turned around and he walked an extra block to my house. And this is in the early 80s. We didn't lock doors. So he just walked in the back door and walked into my dad's door and stared at me with a gun in my mouth and just stopped me. Why did he know to do that? How did that? There's no logical reason for him to have done what he did. He can't explain it. I've asked him. He's like, I don't know. I just had a feeling. And you think about all the things in my life that wouldn't have existed anymore had that moment happened. There's powerful pieces like that. Like, and I had to go back to high school and still get bullied and still get all that crap still had to continue on. My parents were still alcoholics. Like all that stuff still existed, but I had just chosen not to quit at that moment. And so there's all these different parallels and times in my life where there was just like, nope, that's not what you're doing. I know this is hard, but that's not what you're doing, and carry on. And it's been profound. There's so many stories, but yeah.
That is incredible. While you were saying that, and so listeners, just so you know, Scott and I, this is our first conversation together. Like this is literally our first conversation together. So I did not know that he was going to share that particular story. And Scott, as you were sharing it, I literally had like goosebumps, like all over me, because there is in instances like that, those are the type of things that I point to say, if for anyone who's questioning, is God real? Does God exist? Like, does he care? Because maybe God is there, but he's just turned his face away from us and he doesn't care about us anymore. Instances like that can be nothing more for me than confirmation that
Mhm.
absolutely every single person here has a purpose and has meaning to their life. And there is something specific laid out for them to do. And your path has been one that, obviously God is like, Scott, we're going to have to keep going, because there have been multiple instances in your life where the enemy could have taken you out, but God decided differently. Like, no,
Mhm.
it's not. No, I need Scott to hang around for longer. Scott has more work to do. And
Yeah.
how beautiful, just how I'm just like how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and
how beautiful that is.
there's a big piece that I always try to lean back on, which is everything happens for a reason, and that reason
Yes.
is there to serve me. And sometimes that's hard. When I crashed and nearly died in that race, in as I was recovering, it's just like, whew, okay, God, what's how does this benefit me? This seems sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I sprained my finger, sprained my wrist, broke my arm in three pieces, shattered my shoulder in four, broke five ribs, busted my knee, tore my MCL, whiplash, split the side of my face open, broke my skull open, exposing my brain, had one of the worst brain injuries you can get. I have a 3-year-old. I have a 15,000 square foot gym with 27 staff that now doesn't have a leader. I'm in a hospital getting metal parts put in. I can't stay awake for more than an hour and a half. I'm slurring my words. I can hardly walk. Like, you're like, how is this supposed to be good? Like,
Yeah.
but having the faith of going, I'll figure that out later. And people would say that, how are you doing? I'm like, later we're going to sit around a campfire and talk about this and it's going to be amazing. I haven't figured out how yet, but at some point that it will be. And now with the perspective of time having gone by, it was the greatest gift in so many ways. My life is a miracle for a lot of reasons, but right now I'm living a dream life. I love my life now. And because I crashed and then I recovered and I made it back to the World Championships of 2018, we made an amazing documentary. I'm able to share that with people. I get to speak on stage. People pay me to talk, which I can't, that's like the coolest thing ever. And I'm writing a book about it, and I'm home every day to send my son off to school, and I'm home when he comes home off the bus. And that's another piece of this puzzle, which is in 2020 when the world went nuts and lost its focus for a while and all gyms were closed down. At first I rolled up my sleeves. I'm like, we're going to dig in. We're going to do online programs. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And, I had to let all my staff go because nobody was allowed to come to work. And so I paid them all in cash, and they went and did their, set up for the government support or whatever they were going to do. But none of the members were paying memberships anymore because I can't charge you for not coming to the gym. And I was going to dig in. We're going to do all this online stuff. And there it was again. I had this whoosh feeling of, stop, let it go. And I was like, wait, what? Let it go. This is my 18 year. This is my baby. I can't really. Oh, well, what does that mean? And so I just stopped, and then I went back to the intelligence side and I looked at the math, and I was like, okay, I can't afford to have a 15,000 square foot gym open, or closed with no members, but I still got to pay the heat and the light and the mortgage, all that stuff still has to be paid with no income. I'm like, I can't afford that. I don't have a savings account that's going to drain that fast. Like, and it was just a clear feeling of, this is done, let it go. And that was probably my biggest leap of faith. I was like, all right, God, I trust you. I'm going to do it. And so I brought all my staff together. I said, it's over. We're selling off all the equipment. We're letting it go. I can't sustain this. I had all kinds of technical reasons I could explain, but the feeling part I didn't really talk about. But And within a month, we sold off all of our equipment. Within the first week, we sold off most of our equipment. We sold everything went. People
Wow.
built home gyms, garage gyms, other gyms bought stuff. Like it just was gone. Shoop. For a fair enough price. We paid off all our bad debt and I walked away and I let it go. And then here's the amazing part. You're going to laugh. A church rented our building. A church
Oh.
rented our building. And it's funny, they had talked to me a year prior about renting the building or something, but I said, well, no, because I don't want to let go of the gym. No, I'm not willing to sell the building, and because it has to be a gym. So I just said no, thank you. But then when this happened, then I phoned them back and I'm like, are you still looking for a place? And like, we really are. We would love to take over your space. And they did. And so Frontline Church took over our gym, and we arranged at a fair price to cover the payments and everything and all that. And now that's the church I go to. And I have tried, oh gosh, Crystal, I've probably tried 20 different churches. I've tried different religions. I've done all the, I've looked at this one, I've looked at that one, I've looked at the other ones, and nothing ever fit. And I've gone to church off and on. My wife grew up in a church household, and that was a part of her world, but it was never part of my world. And and I would go to this place and it was stuffy and the hymns were like boring and like it just didn't land. I was like, that's not how I know God. It wasn't,
Yeah.
and then after Frontline had been in our building for, gosh, I think a year, I just again, I had this feeling like, you should go to church today. And as the world was ungluing further in 2021, I just really needed my anchor, and I was really lost. And I went to church and I sat there, and it was just cellular. It was like, I'm home. This is my church. And I came home and I told my wife, because she was flabbergasted. I said, I'm just going to go to church today. She's like,
What?
What? Yeah. And what? And so I came back and she's like, how was it? I'm like, I love it. I'd like it for us. I'd like this to be our church. And she cried. So, and we've been going every Sunday since. It's been a year and we love it. It's our new family, and it's that anchor in the windstorm, and they are phenomenal. And they talk about God the way I understand God. And it's just this magic. And like, so none of that would have happened if I wouldn't have crashed, because I realized after that near-death experience that life is so precious, and wasting it grinding along doing something that doesn't fit anymore is just stupid. And there's bigger things here, and learn to listen. And it's been amazing. It's just been amazing.
I could not have, God is so good. So I am always amazed. Like, I know he's not amazed, and I know he's not surprised, and I know he's just kind of like, there are many times in my life where the light bulb has come on and I can almost hear him like, oh, so you got it that time, huh? Because again, like, I don't see God as stuffy and, like far off and distant either. I have developed a very intimate relationship with him, and which has been my anchor as well throughout my life. Whether I've been close to him or whether I've been running in the opposite direction as fast as I can, he has been the constant place that I can always come back to. And so now at this current, this path that I am currently on in this current juncture of my life, this very morning, actually, as I was out for a walk, just in nature, and I wasn't listening to anything. I was like, I just want to be in the presence of God this morning. Like, I just want to, sometimes I'll listen to music. Sometimes I'll listen to people, talking sermons or something else, a book on tape. But this morning, I just wanted to be in his presence. And he was reminding me this morning, Crystal, you come here to be in my presence, but you have to invite me in. Like, I'm always with you. I'm always there, but you have to invite me in. And just as you were talking, this conversation is exactly what I need right now. This is exactly what I need right now today. And thinking of those different things where I'm looking at all that is before me going, okay, well, maybe I need to do this, or maybe I need to do this. And then it's just like, nope, like, exactly what to do. Like, I've told you, what to do. Just trust that and let's do it. So, Scott, you were just like, I knew you would be an inspiration for the listeners. Okay. I knew that when I saw your story. And guys, he talked about the documentary. He mentioned the documentary. You can go watch that for free on YouTube, and it is incredible. I have watched it myself, which is what drew me in to invite Scott to be a guest on our show, because of how inspiring the story is. But it just, yeah, you're exactly what I need today, Scott. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, you also mentioned that you are into a book that hopefully will be coming out, hopefully sometime in the very, very near future, like maybe somewhere around Christmas. And so if anyone's looking for something good, what is that book about? Like, what do you talk about in that book?
So the book is about the journey from getting into the World Championships for Ultraman, and then the crash, and then the recovery, and getting back to the World Championships. And for those of you who don't know, an Ultraman is it's a 3-day triathlon. On day 1, we swim 6.2 miles in the open ocean, followed by a 90-mile bike, which is pretty much all uphill because, you go from sea level to a volcano. So it's uphill. Then day 2 is a 170-mile bike, and day 3 is a 52.4-mile double marathon, all in Kona, Hawaii, and 90, 100-degree heat and lava and all that stuff. So it's a pretty challenging event. It's an amazing event. And so the book tells the story of getting to the World Championships and the race I had in 2013, which was really an awesome race, challenging but good. And then going back in 2015 to try and be top 5 in the world. I was 21st overall in 2013, and I wanted to see if I could be top 5 in 2015. So I had a really amazing coach, and I was racing as hard as I could. And then I was going downhill in a bit of a rainstorm, and apparently there was algae on the bridge deck. And I woke up in the brain trauma unit on Oahu 3 days later. So, and I met some amazing people. Peter Hudson and Adam Fox saved my life. They were a couple of the Australians that I had just passed, and they stopped in their World Championships for over 40 minutes and, got me breathing again, put me in recovery position. Adam's wife held her hand on the back of my head. Still hard to talk about. And she was the one that made the comment. She's like, I can feel his brains, like it's broken.
Wow.
And Gary Wang, an American, he stopped traffic, and they paused their World Championships. And so that's a powerful story too. And I've got Peter's, he describes the day in the book and stuff like that. So it really describes that time, and then the journey of, okay, now how do I get through this? Because I got back from Hawaii, and they didn't realize how badly my shoulder was broken, and they didn't x-ray far enough up on my arm to realize it was in 3 pieces. They thought I had just sprained my wrist. So I went to a hospital in Canada, and they're like, whoa, this is all broken, you need surgery. So 13 days after the crash, they put metal plate in my shoulder, metal plate in my arm, and then got me to a neurologist. And they're like, you've the worst brain injury possible. The medical textbooks say you should be in a vegetative state. Like, the fact that you're still walking and talking, even though you're stumbling and slurring your words, the fact that you're cognizant at all is a miracle. And so then all of a sudden I started doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and I started doing all kinds of different, they did a thing called the Epley maneuver to put the balance crystals back in my ears to help with the dizziness. There was all kinds of stuff that came to pass. But then my business was failing, because I was the marketing guy, and all of a sudden there's no marketing of great, amazing staff, and they were running the day-to-day things, but there was no marketing. And it was January in a gym.
Yeah.
You can't not be marketing in January. You need to be hustling. And I couldn't remember passwords. I couldn't remember how software worked. I couldn't remember how my computer worked. I couldn't remember a lot of things. And I mean, I couldn't put my socks on, let alone run a business. And so it was really hard, really hard. And so the book talks about how I came through all that stuff and how I got back to training again, which was my focus, and how I slowly recovered. And then I ended up with knee surgery and to fix the MCL and the cartilage, and um, just on. I made it back to the World Championships in 2018 and finished 25th overall. And in spite of one of the toughest race courses they've ever had, because of course there was volcanoes at the time, so they had to go up and over the mountain pass rather than around it. So it's a great story. And so I'm 113,000 words into that story, and I can't wait for it to be done. There's a lot of very powerful pictures and stuff. I keep having to reset I'll have it ready for October. Well, maybe December. So, I'm going as fast as I can. The editor's tapping her fingers, waiting for me to hand my next piece in, and it'll come. So I'm hoping to get it done as sooner than later, but we're pretty excited about it. And the documentary, one of my great friends, Drew, made it, and we've won some awards. We won Audience Choice for Best Documentary. We won a bunch of different things. So, at first I was trying to charge. I was like, you know what? It's just free. It's on YouTube. Like, look, just enjoy it. Be inspired. Share it. Click the little thumbs up button. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, I don't know if the listeners were really paying attention to the dates that you said, but you competed in your first Ultraman in 2013. And then you went, right, the world in 2013. And then you went back in 2015. So just 2 years later, because again, you wanted to see if you could make top 5. And then the crash happened in 2015. Mm-hmm. And you literally, literally your brains were coming out. Like, that's something that people say, just kind of as a thing, but you were literally in that place where the medical community probably did not give you a lot of, the prognosis in their minds, they probably didn't give you a lot of time to survive or a high life expectancy or what your life would look like in recovery. Mm-hmm. And so and that is 2015. And then just 3 short years. I mean, I'm sure they were very long years, but yep. As we look back at it, just 3 short years, here you are competing again, and you placed 25th overall. You guys, this is not just like, a little local competition. This is a global thing. I am in awe, and I am inspired just by that, knowing, again, I've watched the documentary, so I know all of the parts and pieces that were just not working like they're intended to. And I think you also talk about your wife in that documentary a little bit, don't you? 100%. And just how incredible. I want to give her a hug, as a wife of 20 years, I want to give her a hug, because I can only imagine not even just the getting that phone call or the, someone having to let her know that you had been in this accident, but then again, bringing you home and what that recovery looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. She was amazing. She's my best friend, obviously, and she's just a gift. And yeah, you picture that time. The other funny layer is we had sold our house before going to Kona. The piece of property we had always dreamed about, an acreage kind of overlooking close to the lake in a quiet area near town, came up for sale, and I knew the guy selling it, and we set up a private deal, and we put our house up for sale, and then there was a quick sale on our house. So we moved into a crappy little duplex the week before the World Championships. We didn't even unpack. And we thought, we'll unpack, we get home from Kona. And then I smashed my skull open. And now comes my wife with a 3-year-old, 3.5-year-old, a broken husband who can barely form sentences, who had to go straight to the hospital for a week, in a duplex, a strange duplex full of boxes. And she just was calm, just made it work, and was there, and did, she had to learn to shave because I shaved my head. She had to learn to do that because I couldn't. And, my 3.5-year-old loved putting daddy socks on for him because I couldn't put my socks on and couldn't reach that far down. And, it it was an amazing family experience in that sense. And she would, after a bit, she would drive me to work, and I would sit in a chair in my office, and the staff would just take turns. The managers of the gym would take turn. They'd come, Kate, tell me what's going on. What do you need? And then, so the front desk manager, the childcare manager, the boot camp manager, the head personal trainer would all just take turns. And then after about an hour and a half, I would start to droop and fade and slur my words. And my wife was like, all right, we're going home. And that was it. We went home, and she was amazing through the whole thing. And she did all of the insurance papers and was on the phone with people for months and months and months to get that all to work and to cover, because we had a $280,000 medical bill. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a little intimidating too, right? Well, how the heck are we going to pay that? But our insurance that I purchased extra race insurance, and thankfully they covered it. But there's 10 million paperwork elements to go through. And my wife did all that because I wasn't capable, and she's amazing. I can't say enough about her, but yeah, she's awesome.
How incredible. And what an incredible gift. That's just another one of those things that just kind of comes up for me where I think, okay, well, Scott, here's your life and these things that you have, gone through and overcome, but they're just so how interconnected we are and how important those connections are. What if she wasn't your wife?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does that journey look like without her there with you?
Yeah.
So it's just how amazing it is that, God surrounds us. And again, I was just talking about this morning, how God surrounds us with exactly the people that we need in the various stages and seasons of our life. Some of them are there with us for the long haul. Like you said, you've been married for 32 years. I've been married for 20 years. So obviously, like, I'm not, I'm kind of attached to him, and I still like him. Like, that's the cool thing about it. But how incredible it is that we get surrounded by these people who are there to help us, pull ourselves back up, or they are the ones who actually wind up pulling us up when we can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah. One of the words for in Kona, for the Ultraman, we have 3 words that we focus on: aloha, ohana, and kokua. So aloha is the spirit of love, kokua is the spirit of giving and support, and ohana is family. And yeah, ohana is huge. I think about obviously my wife and my son, but also my friends and the racing community and the people that rallied, and my staff, and all of the people that were a part of that. And yeah, like I've seen so many times, it's kind of like the way God works, and it's beyond our comprehension in many ways. We try to understand it, but there's so many. It's like an energy force. It's like the world's craftiest puzzle. And looking backwards, you go, oh wow, like the only way this worked is because that happened, then that happened, then this happened, then that happened to allow this to happen, and now this happened. Like, if you look back at all the steps that led to a miracle, it's amazing.
Yes. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, everyone wants to know, like, where am I going? Like, what I want to know all of the things. No, you don't. You don't know. You don't want to know what's going to have to happen in order to get you to that place over there. Because, Scott, if you had known that you were going to have to go through, that you were going to have to, just literally have your body broken on a road, and everything that came with the recovery process, all of the therapy, all of the pain, all of the, just the questioning and the struggle. If you had known that you were going to have to go through all of that, would you have questioned? Would you have maybe sat down and thought for another minute, maybe I don't want to go do this?
Maybe it's not worth a medal and a t-shirt.
Right.
Which I didn't get a medal.
And then you didn't even get it, right?
I didn't even get a medal. Yeah. And I think, it comes to pass in a lot of different ways. And one of them, like, I've been a trainer for 25 years, and I coach people on nutrition, and I'll say fat loss, but I'll say that in kind of quotation marks, because it parallels. Dropping 10 pounds is not how you drop 10 pounds. Becoming the person who doesn't need those 10 pounds is how you do that.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's a big parallel to having faith is it's if you want this great life, then you just become the person who has a great life. It's about that. It's about being that best person. And then having a great life is a byproduct. That just happens, right?
Yes.
Like I could never create my life the way it is right now, as amazing as it is. I could never manufacture that by design, but by being my best self and having faith and living from a great place of gratitude and thankfulness for every day I can draw breath and trying to think about, well, how can I help the world and how can I make the world better? By being that person, I have a great life. And the base parallel same with nutrition is by eating well and moving your body in the way that makes sense for you, you will drop fat because you don't need that anymore. Right? It's just that simple, right?
Yes.
And yeah, yeah.
I love that parallel because we like to overcomplicate things and we like to come up with excuses and we like to come up with, whose fault it is that things don't work when really our instructions are very quite simple. I mean, they are very simple. And if we will let go of the rest and really come back into the very simple instructions to love God and love people, love God first and love your neighbor as yourself. If you will start everything just from there
Yeah.
and look at everything through that lens. Is what I'm doing right now, is it loving God, loving people? And friends, people includes yourself, you
Yes.
know, and that's a big part of any weight loss journey too. Like it's about taking care of yourself so that you
Yeah.
can be, this incredible person that God created you to be
Mhm.
without all of the stuff that you don't need. It's so that is when we can view everything through that lens
Mhm.
and take into account, is this conversation loving God, loving people? Is this job opportunity going to allow me to love God and love people? All of the things, if we could look at it through that lens, then I think a lot more people would have a lot more happier and satisfying and fulfilling lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's that faith is, well, if I'm this best person, this best version of myself, then I will just attract those other. And it's not that bad things don't happen or challenges don't come. That's not it. Challenges allow us to grow. A
Yes.
cold makes your immune system stronger. A challenge makes you stronger. Like every challenge has benefit. It's not like you can have this challenge-free life. That's not what that means. But by being that person, then things just change. And it's if I want to, like, goals are stupid. Like they're amazing, but they're stupid. Like, well, they are, right? Because you set this goal. I'm gonna drop 40 pounds. Okay, well, that's dumb, but whatever. That's a goal, and people have that goal. Okay, cool. That goal has a purpose. Okay, I want to drop, let's say somebody says I want to drop 40 pounds. Okay, well, who would I need to be to weigh 40 pounds less? Well, I would need to make good food choices. I would need to move my body. I would need to get some sleep. I would need to drink some water. I would need to plug in daily to something that encourages me and has me have a good mindset. That if I do those things, then dropping 40 pounds will just happen. It'll just be a byproduct of those decisions. Because if you're miserable and you're stuffing your face full of junk and you don't exercise because you're mad at yourself because you're unfit and you hate the world and you just drown in Netflix, that person doesn't drop 40 pounds. And I don't care what crash diet or fad diet you go on, you're going to revert back to that same misery. It's just going to come back again. So it's the same thing with faith. And that's what I love about going to church every Sunday. I plug back in. Oh, right. Everything's awesome. you know,
I love that. And Scott, again, like obviously God knew I was going to need a little bit of reassurance, confirmation, whatever it is. This morning on my walk, as I was inviting him in and really just kind of being in this place like, all right, I don't want to be tired. I want to have the energy that I need to do the things that I need to do. And just really kind of having that conversation of, all right, so God, what am I missing? Like, what is it that I'm not, what am I not focusing on that needs more attention, that needs my attention? And not that I'm not, well, yeah, really, that I'm just not paying as much attention as I need to. And he gave me 4 things. And you're going to laugh when you hear what they are. Rest, sleep, water, and movement. Okay, those are the 4 things that he literally gave me this morning. And I started to kind of fight with it a little bit. And I was like, all right, well, rest and sleep. And it was like, no, Crystal, those are 2 different things. Sleep is when you go to sleep. That is the 8 hours that your body needs. And some people need more, some people need less. And yes, I get that. I personally actually do really need those 8 hours, and I rarely get them. I usually get like 6, maybe 6.5. And so this is for me telling me, Crystal, you need to get what you actually need. And then of course my water, upping the water intake. I drink water, but how much do you drink water? So really just kind of pulling back in to pay attention, movement, all those things. But sleep and rest. Now, Crystal, you need to sleep, but you also need to learn how to rest, which means unplugging, which means coming back into my presence. And this led into the conversation I was having about inviting him in. I want to be in his presence. I need to come invite him in. And being able to rest in him, whether I'm working, whether I'm, making dinner, whether I'm in the karate dojo, like whatever it is, I can rest in him because I've given the situation to him. I'm viewing it through that lens of serve God, serve people, love God, love people. And that is how I can continue to stay in rest in him. So yeah, God is awesome, and he loves to give me little reminders like this. Like I said, he brings the people into your life that you need exactly when you need them. So
Yep. Totally. Yeah, absolutely true.
well,
Yeah.
Scott, I want our listeners to be able to connect with you and get in touch with you, learn more about you. So how can they do that?
Probably the easiest is just my main website, scottyfit.com. It's got everything there. It's got the links to the movie. So SCOTTYFIT.com. It's warriorcodefilm.com if you want to just go directly to the movie or see the preview. But scottyfit.com's got everything on there. There's information on my 21-day program or 6-week program or personal one-on-one coaching, and the links to the video, to the movie. So, and of course, as soon as things develop on the book, I'll have that out there too, so people can see that. And I do keynote lectures, like talks and presentations and stuff. So if anybody knows of a company that's looking for somebody to be at a conference and have a dynamic speaker that involves the audience, and I do all kinds of pretty cool stuff that way. That's interactive, and I talk about all kinds of different pieces. I've got some really cool things that I've learned through the process of nearly dying and coming back to good again. So I like to share those little nuggets of wisdom.
I love it. I love it. Maybe you need to start thinking about crafting the the word repeat performance kind of dropped into my mind as you're talking about overcoming near-death experiences. This is not a one-time thing for you.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true. When
So
you
that
look at
may
it
be
that way.
another avenue for you to explore, like talk about being pursued. God was unwilling to let you give up on multiple occasions, and what a testament to his faithfulness that
Yeah.
he was unwilling to allow you to give up, to quit
Yep.
at all, at any point in time. So, and we're grateful for that.
Thanks. Me too.
Right?
Yep. Pretty happy I'm still here.
Well, Scott, thank you again so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure and just an honor to have the conversation with you.
Thanks, Crystal. I really enjoyed speaking about it. It was very easy and wonderful to talk with you and be it's funny, I've done lots of different podcast interviews. I've never done one where I got to talk about the Lord a little bit. So that's kind of fun. It's neat. It's unusual nowadays somehow.
Wow, it's been an absolute joy to have you here.
Thanks.
Hey friend, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's my pleasure as always to be here with you. If what you listened to today resonated with you, if you enjoyed listening to the show, do me a favor. Go ahead and like and subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. Those reviews are so helpful. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate each and every single one of them. And go ahead and share this episode out with a friend. Invite them along for a walk through the Word, and let's enjoy that daily bread together. See you tomorrow.